Tell me what you see in me. Gotta be something different. You must be made for me. Patience is nothing.
Bye.
Awesome. Yes, and am I saying your name right? It's Miss Amora, correct?
Mara. Yes.
Amara.
Amara.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. No, you're good. Awesome. Well, why don't you introduce yourself to our
Sure.
listeners who are not aware of Christie Campus and who what they do for students, and then as well as yourself as an individual.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. My name is Amara Kemmerer. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training. I currently serve as the Executive Vice President of Client Engagement at Christie Campus Health. Christie Campus Health is a program that offers a variety of well-being and mental health supports for college students. We are a program that works exclusively with the college student population to provide a number of what we call self-directed tools, but also more clinical support, like 24/7 access to clinicians, access to no-cost counseling sessions, and psychiatric prescribing, assessment, and medication management.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome. And I know a little bit about that because I've reached out to you guys a couple of times on my own as a student, as well as our school's separate counseling centers. So if you could give us a little bit more insight, I guess, how long have you been with Christie Campus and what services would it be best known for specifically for college students?
Great. Sure. So I have worked with Christie Campus for about 1.5 years now. Prior to joining Christie Campus, I've spent my whole career working on a college campus, specifically Northeastern University in the Boston area.
Yeah, I saw that on your profile. That's awesome.
So I thank you. So my passion is around college student wellness, college student education. And so I started early on in a program dedicated to evidence-based intervention and education around substance use. And then the program grew to include things like sexual violence prevention and education, sexual health education. Ultimately, I moved into a role as the Associate Dean for Wellness, where I supervised our health and counseling center in addition to a number of other areas. That is actually how I met the Christie Campus folks, because Northeastern is a partner with Christie Campus. So I was so excited by their model, and here's why. And I think to sort of answer the second part of your question, what we know is that it's really important to make sure that there is access to mental health services on college campuses and services that are easy to connect with and don't have long wait times. And that is often the problem that many colleges are trying to solve. They have awesome counselors on campus, but the demand sort of outpaces what they can support. And what happens is students end up waiting really long times to get those appointments. Sometimes what we see is their symptoms get worse or they get discouraged and then they don't follow through because they don't want to wait so long. So our product kind of offers the ability to connect quickly, whether that's a phone call and an immediate kind of problem resolution, or maybe a crisis or a panic attack, something in the moment. They can pick up the phone and in under 30 seconds be on the phone with a licensed counselor. And we found that that's something that really can go a long way to helping kind of in the moment or help a student kind of de-escalate that's in a really tough place. So access to those mental health services, I think, is at the core, but also we know that not all students that are struggling with challenges or feeling stressed in their life necessarily need to talk to a therapist about it.
I was just about to say, I think the biggest thing at our school when we talked about, because we were working on like advertising for the counseling center and stuff like that. And the biggest thing they said was that a lot of times with the crisis thing, people don't always feel like it is a crisis. So then that makes a hesitation to reach out as well. They're like, oh, well, it's not that big of an issue, so I'll wait, or, things like that.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like, as somebody that worked in a position with college students, I heard that all the time. Students saying like, I don't know that my issue really rises to being a crisis. I mean, and I think we have some work to do with education there, because we don't want people to feel like what they're going through isn't serious enough to warrant, getting some third party professional support that really can make a difference in that moment.
Yeah.
But I do also think there are students out there that may never be willing to make that call and could benefit from other kinds of support. And that's why, at least for me, I was so attracted to the Christie Campus model, because we have a couple of things that really students can do in an anonymous fashion on their own time. It doesn't require them to talk to somebody if they don't want to. So things like using the Headspace meditation and mindfulness
Yes, which
training.
our university, Valdosta State, uses predominantly very well. So,
Is that
and it's
right?
free. Yes, absolutely. And I would like to say it's free for all of our students that go there. So if you didn't know, it's free to use, download, use the
Yeah,
code. That's an awesome tool. I love that. Could you name a little bit more of those resources that are more anonymous, if you're aware?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. So there we have a newer product in that lineup, and it's called Silver Cloud, and that
Oh,
is a online self-guided program for anxiety, depression, anxiety and depression,
hmm.
insomnia, concerns about substance use, and students can essentially go on their own time and complete a series of modules
Oh,
that really
wow.
help them think about things differently, and ultimately the hope is then it helps them feel better about those
Mhm.
things. So it's got kind of what we call a cognitive behavioral approach. So there's that, plus there's that wellness hub, which is the website with all kinds of information students can kind of surf on their own time,
Mhm.
and may help them, connect to some specific information that around wellness that could be useful.
Wow, that's awesome. And so that silver, it's called Silver Cloud, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's cool. It's more of like, I guess you would say like a class almost, like they take modules and slowly go through. That's so awesome.
Yes. Yes,
I
exactly.
love that. I think that's great. I know for Valdosta State, we can get connected to you guys by directly going to our counseling center. But what are some ways that other students can reach out? What's the best way to reach out to you guys? Is it to go through your website directly? Is it to call their universities, health services? Which do you guys prefer? What's more efficient?
Yeah, I think the best path is probably to go through the wellness website that
Okay.
that should be linked on the counseling center.
Okay.
And by doing that, students can kind of on the top half of that website, there's all kinds of cool information by topic area, from learning about food to sexual health to anything.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think I've been on it a couple times.
have
Mhm.
you been on that?
I
Okay.
have.
If you scroll down that page, there's a whole section with all of the resources available to students through us. And so they
Okay.
can click on those, learn a little bit about like how it works and what it is, and then how to connect with it.
Okay, awesome. And I will be sure to link those websites and links
Awesome.
below for them as well.
Great.
Going into our next question, yes, so I read up on your page, and I know you're very well adversed with substance abuse and learning about that education. When did you notice? Did you notice more in your career aspect that that was a major issue, or when you were an undergrad? And what inspired you to tackle that issue as far as education?
Thank you for that question. So I feel like, to be honest, I kind of stumbled into that area. I went to
Mm,
school to be a clinician. I thought I wanted to have a private practice and work with people in therapy
yeah.
all day. And I graduated with my degree and kind of realized that wasn't going to be the right fit for me. So early in my career, I was invited to work on a research grant from the NIAAA, the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism.
Oh,
And that
wow.
grant was at Northeastern University. And what we did is we tested what we called innovative approaches to helping to reduce high risk drinking in particular. And so,
Wow.
as a part of being on that grant, I met with students all day long to kind of test what we called a brief intervention program. It was
Okay.
a 2-session kind of assessment and then what we called personalized feedback program.
Okay.
And what happened is, as a part of working on that grant, I got to partner with really the biggest researchers and experts in that area in the country. So I learned
Wow.
so much. And what happened for me is I became kind of critically aware of how much substance use and mental health are attached.
Hmm.
And I got really passionate about the topic area. And so what I found is through working with students, they were really responding well to the program.
Yeah.
That's kind of normally a topic that makes people defensive.
Right. Yeah. Very.
Most young adults kind of, are used to programs that are a little more lectury,
Yes.
tell them just not to do it.
Right.
And this program was quite different. And so I got really excited about doing that work and knowing that we could kind of move the needle on helping college students maybe reduce some of their high risk behaviors that then actually improved their mental health and their academic goals. So I kind of fell into it by accident, but then ultimately became really passionate about the work and doing things that the science show work rather than just kind of putting programs out that a lot of college students have seen and don't really connect to very much.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. That's really great. And I'm sure it's still at Northeastern University, right? The
It
program.
is.
Okay,
It
that
is.
is.
It's like my second baby. I feel like that program. It started very small and now it's become a very large program. So it's still in place there. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And I guess from that experience, what would be some of the biggest misconceptions people would have? And you can say either about mental health or substance abuse if you're more aware in that area.
Sure. So I would say I think there's like three main ones I wanted to mention. I think the first misconception, particularly about substance use, is that I think a lot of times people think a person really needs to kind of have a problem per se with substance use or hit rock bottom
Rock bottom,
before
yeah.
they can get any kind of support.
Mhm.
And in fact, there's a ton of data showing there are things we can do, particularly with young adults, to help them reduce the harms they're experiencing
Mhm.
from substance use to make some moderate changes before things become really problematic. So I think that's one misconception, that we can't do anything or help anybody until they really have a problem. Not
Yeah.
true at all.
Okay.
I think the second misconception is that people think that everybody in college drinks or uses drugs.
Wow, that's a really good. Yeah. Wow.
I don't know what you think about. I mean,
Well,
what do you?
no, I know that's not true now because I'm a rising senior, but definitely as a
Okay.
freshman coming in, I definitely believe that heavily just with media and,
Yes.
older siblings and yeah, it's a big thing. Mhm.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I was, like you said it perfectly. I think we get all kinds of messages from the media, from movies,
Mhm.
from family, from friends about like what being in college is supposed to be like. And I think
Yeah.
there's this conception that everybody's doing it. Nationally, we see 1 in 5 aren't using alcohol or other substances at all. That's 20%.
Wow.
Whether those are individuals in recovery, whether those are students that just don't have any interest in it. There's a variety of reasons why people choose not to use substances. I think it's important to remember not to make that assumption. And among those who do choose to drink, the vast majority of college students don't drink in a way that involves getting drunk. So I think it's also remembering that what happens is, and this is sort of my third misconception, there's something out there called social norms theory, where what we know is that people tend to notice the extremes.
Mhm.
They tend to notice the people that go out and get really wasted when they drink. They don't tend to notice the people either not drinking or having one drink.
Right.
And so we tend to assume that's what everybody is doing when the data actually tells a very different story, which is it's a very small number that drink in a high risk manner. So I would say those are kind of my top three.
Mhm. Those are really good ones, and they're big ones to hit and talk about, especially I think the media one, which comes into play a lot with my major and our career and changing that aspect of how mental health is viewed, especially in today when sometimes it can be very glamorized or just misconstrued. Yes. So I think that's very awesome. And I just want to encourage students listening, anyone listening, to take those next steps. And like you said, there are ways where it can be very anonymous as well, so they don't even have to
Absolutely.
inform or let them know private information and things like that. That is really great to hear. I guess my next question, you said a little bit that you guys in your program, did you guys discuss sexual health as well?
We did, yeah. It started as, a topic that in fact we focused a lot on, and we built a whole resource center and education arm, was focused on sexual violence prevention and education. And then in the last year I was there, we also started working on kind of more of the sexual health education pieces as well. So a little bit of both, but I have also, I did spend a lot of time in that, like, how do we do better to create an environment where survivors feel like they can come forward and have resources, and how do we educate the entire community about preventing sexual assault and sexual violence as well.
Absolutely. I love that. And encouraging those who are educated to pass it on, because I think that college is a big environment where that is taught, because a lot of incoming freshmen and students are not fully educated enough. And then it creates kind of that stigma and fear to talk about it until, kind of like you said with the drinking, where it's like not too late, but something terrible has happened or a bad situation has happened. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, I guess we just have time for some fun questions now, because we discussed a little bit more. So tell us, what is the best advice someone had given you in your undergrad years leading up to your career now? A little bit that you discussed about earlier.
Oh, I love this. I think the best advice that I got is that, while it seems kind of magical to always try to pursue your passions, don't forget that sometimes passion for things can develop when you really give something a chance. I never, ever would have sought out the work that I do, because I just didn't know I didn't know how interesting it was to me. But I had a great opportunity to try it, and I doubled and tripled down. I tried to be a good learner and take everything in from the people that I got to train with and learn from. And I became very passionate about the work that I do. So I guess I heard that in college, like, it's awesome when some people can just follow their passions and do that work, but don't discount sometimes that actually starting in a certain area and really giving it a fair shot and learning as much as you can actually ignite a passion that you didn't even know you had.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Especially coming from me as a rising senior about to graduate. I definitely am taking that advice to hold. Yes, absolutely. And I think it's so true when they say that you never stop learning, because I think even as a senior, I'm discovering passions and things that I never thought, that I would be interested in or wanted to try, or for those listening, if they want to go on to grad school, different paths like that. So I just think that is awesome. What was the health and wellness like for you growing up in school? Is it completely different for this generation than it was for you back in your undergrad years? And how far has we come in a positive way?
Oh, great question. I think what has changed, and sometimes I feel like my experience is like so out of the norm. If you can believe it, I grew up in a family where both of my parents are psychologists.
Oh, wow.
And so there was always a lot of, even if it wasn't in school or in my undergrad, I kind of grew up in a setting where we talked about everything, where like it was encouraged to get feelings out, to process things, to get support when you needed it. So I think in some ways that was sort of a value in my family. But I think in my undergraduate years, there was not nearly as much awareness about how to support students or what the need was. I think we know that historically speaking, emerging adult, which is typically the developmental phase that traditional age college students are in, there's tons of transition, right? You're navigating relationships in a totally different way. You're trying to differentiate yourself from your family. So much in flux. It inevitably creates, stress, uncertainty, confusion. Couple that with most of the time, people that have more serious mental health issues, those can emerge in like the 18 to 22 range. So sometimes college students are having their first episode of mental health distress, while they're in college. It's very common that happens. So I think what we've seen is that over the past 10 years, we have gotten better at collecting data. We are seeing that college students are struggling more and more. that was a trend that we saw pre-COVID, and then COVID made it even worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it definitely makes sense.
it was something that those of us working in the field have been really concerned about for at least a decade, and
Okay.
COVID just put it on steroids, basically.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I think the good news about that is that colleges are more aware of adding support. And in fact, you know, what's happening at your institution as a result of,
Absolutely.
you know, there being an awareness that there needed to be a big push and emphasis on making sure there are a lot of resources and a lot of awareness for those resources, so no student feels like there isn't help out there.
Yes.
So I think that awareness piece has changed a lot.
Yes. I'm so happy it did. And COVID was a very stressful time, but I'm just so grateful for all the clinicians and the health field workers and the counselors that are willing to help us out, because it is a very high demand. And even at our school, there's not nearly enough counselors as there are students. Like, the counselor to student ratio is so huge. So I'm just so grateful. And it looks like we have 5 minutes left. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the work that you do, Christie Campus, where they can find you guys? I'm so grateful that we had this discussion together.
Well, thank you so much for like the leadership role you're taking as a student. I think, you know, like people like me, I think it was always exciting to me when students got involved or wanted to talk about this, because I think you're right. You said this earlier, the student to student kind of ability to talk about topics and share information is so important. I would just say, if there are students listening out there, you know, please do everything you can to familiarize yourself with the resources. You know, what we find is that oftentimes people don't go looking for the resources until they're kind of in a bad spot.
Yes. Yeah.
Whether it's a crisis or they're just feeling really down or they're struggling with anxiety or something happened and then they're in their life and it's really affecting them. It can be hard to navigate resources when you're feeling badly. And so the more you can do to even take a quick glimpse at what's out there, make sure you know all the things available to you. And, you know, through our program, there is a lot you can get in addition to all the awesome resources you have from your campus counselors, from your campus medical staff. Make sure you know so that you have it in your hip pocket, or could share with a friend who's going through something rough, and, you know, knowing where to point somebody in that moment can go such a long way to helping them get connected to the support they need.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't even count the amount of times I've referred people, probably this year alone, to just the counseling services available, and even you guys, Christie Campus, because a lot of students just don't know that it's out there.
Yeah, we find that a lot. I mean, I think students are inundated with information. Like, there is so much coming at students, emails, I mean, and then you manage all the workload that you have. I mean, it's hard to take it all in. So I think we're always looking for ways to make sure that we're being kind of promoting as visibly as possible and not have it be information overload, right? It's a tough balance to find, but I love the student to student kind of ambassador thing too.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I am sure I'm going to let you guys know when this will be posted and send you guys all the links and criteria to share. And then if you guys are able to, I don't know, post it on your website for maybe other universities. Okay. That way other people can find out.
I'll talk to Sonia. Sure.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And then I'll find on the page the hub you were talking about, and I'll double check with you guys if it's the right one that way before.
Awesome. Yeah, you can. Do you have my email address? Feel free to email me.
I don't.
Oh, okay. I think I have yours because Sonia sent me the Zoom link.
Okay.
So why don't I just send you a quick email after this so you have it, and, you know, just so you have my name too and my info.
I would love that.
Okay.
I would love that.
Okay, great.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for the work you're doing. You will, you have so many great things ahead of you. So I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. And I will keep in contact with you guys because I will be using your resources all the time. So
okay, that sounds wonderful.
Yes. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
No problem. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Tell me what you see in me. Gotta be something different. You must be